Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1005B, and today's date is June 23rd, 2016, and the title of the episode is U.S. Pushing to Send More Troops to the Middle East? Mission creep, anyone? Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, today the Supreme Court, they were deadlocked over the legality of the president's immigration program. In a one-sentence decision, the court affirmed a lowest court ruling blocking the program from going forward. There was a 4-4 split, which leaves intact an appeals court ruling that said Obama's overstepped his authority. And right now, the immigration plan is completely blocked. And we have to look at the situation, and we have to realize there is no problem with people who want to come into the United States, or any country for that matter. There is a process that is set up to deal with this. There are borders to keep certain individuals out of the country, just like you lock your home. You trust your neighbors, you're friends with your neighbors, but there are others that you don't want in your house. Actually, many people don't want their neighbors in their house. Same thing with the country. There's a reason why we have borders. There's a reason why they're set up to keep out certain individuals, because they have to go through a process. What Obama wanted to do is anyone that jumped over the fence and got in, they're here. No problem. It's like someone going into a sporting event and not paying and just jumping over and saying, I'm in. No problem. You can't touch me. Same thing with the movie theater. Well, what was happening was these people were coming in, and then they were just being bussed all over the place, and no background checks were being run. Nothing was being done. So we can see right now that this has to stop because it's completely illegal. Now, we see Democrats, they have staged a 15-hour protest, and they did a sit-in in Congress because they want gun safety legislation. Now, the sit-in didn't really work, but we do see the legislation from Susan Collins, where it's no fly, no buy. Well, that advanced, and it moved through the U.S. Senate, cleared one procedural hurdle, and it was not clear if the Senate would move further ahead on it, passing the bill to the House of Representatives, but we're going to have to wait and see. Now remember, this is completely unconstitutional. It's a violation of all our rights, and it is the beginning of bliss. And this is something that we need to watch very, very carefully. Now, we talk about the FBI facial recognition database quite a bit, and we know the FBI, since 2014, they've been accumulating, millions and millions of individuals in this huge database. They're going to passports, to different states, and getting the driver's license picture. Well, there's a new GAO report reported from the Electronic Frontier Foundation. And what they're starting to realize is that all these images in this database, guess what? It's not the criminals that are in there. It's innocent people. The overwhelming majority of the images are of innocent people, not terrorists, not criminals. So what are they creating here? Because there's no reason that innocent people need to be in this database. And we can see right now they are using this, and actually it's 90% are non-criminals that are in this database. They are using this most likely to keep track of everyone, because what eventually we'll see is facial recognition systems set up at mass transportation, at airports, and they will track your movements around the country. And we can see right now that everything they've told us about what they're doing, spying, looking for terrorists, Has it ever worked? Look at all of the false flags we've had. Let's take it at face value and pretend that they were real terrorist acts around the country. All the spying, all the emails that are read, all the data they've collected, the facial recognition database, everything they've done, has the government actually protected us if we believe their story? Have they protected us during 9/11? No. Have they protected us during the Boston bombing? No. Have they protected us during San Bernardino? No. Have they protected us in Orlando? No. So guess what? If we go by their record right now, their system doesn't work. And you can't count all the FBI patsies either. Those were all set up. These are not real terrorists. But we know why it doesn't work. Because all of it was false flags. They were staged. So when we look at what they're doing, they're actually spying on American people, keeping track of each and every one of us. Now, out in France, we see people are continually rallying, they're protesting, and around 60,000 people are taking part in demonstrations in Paris against labor reform. This is continuing, and we're starting to see that many of the people around the world right now are tired, they're sick and tired of austerity, they're tired of not working, they're tired of the conditions they're living in, and we're starting to see that people are continually protesting. People are out there saying enough is enough, and this is ongoing, and it's going to build over time. Now, China and Russia, they're going to step up their nuclear energy cooperation. We see, according to Putin, that China and Russia, they built a nuclear power plant, and they say this system has proved reliable over the last 8 years, and now they're going to move this forward. Actually, the IAEA, they have said that the nuclear reactor that China and Russia built is one of the safest in the world, and we can see they're moving their agenda forward. They're cooperating even more so than before. Now, we understand that NATO is continually bringing in more and more military assets into the region of the Baltics. Very interestingly, General Ben Hodges, he was talking about NATO, talking about Russia, talking about the Baltics, and he was saying that NATO has no ability to defend the Baltic states from a Russian invasion. What he's saying is that if something should break out in this area, Russia would conquer this area in 36 to 60 hours. The defenses that are set up right now cannot stop Russia whatsoever. So all of this talk of moving troops, moving military assets, moving everything into this area, it's not going to work. Just like the missile shield that they set up, because remember, these people do believe if they strike first, they're going to win. And guess what? Russia, China, their weapons, they're not like Iraq. They're not like Yemen's. They're not like Libya's. These countries are advanced, equal or better than the United States. And going up against a foe like this, it's a no-win situation for everyone. Now, out in Turkey, we know that Erdogan wants visa-free travel for his population. We know that he wants to join the EU. And Erdogan is out there and he's saying, you know what, let's do the same thing the UK is doing. Let's hold a referendum. And let's see if the people want to join the European Union or they don't want to join. Let the people decide. Well, first of all, when does Erdogan let the people decide anything? He's a dictator. So all of this is for show. Now, Turkey, they have placed an order for the new Cobra 2 4x4 tactical armored vehicle, and this was placed yesterday for about $120 million, and they're going to be using this for the fight with Syria, to go after the Kurdistan Workers' Party, And we can see that they're beefing up their military right now for all of this. Now, something very interesting in Yemen. The Yemen government insisted that the Houthi rebels withdraw from all territory seized since 2014 and hand back control of state institutions ahead of any political settlement. The government says there could be no talk of any political arrangements before the militias completely withdraw and hand over their weapons, and state institutions and agencies are restored to the legitimate government that was put there by the United States government central bankers. Well, think about what's going on here. And we heard this before in Ukraine and many other countries, where the U.S. has a puppet government and the people are fighting against the puppet government. They give them an ultimatum. Do what we say or else. Which is very interesting because you look at the situation in Syria, it's the complete opposite. They don't have a puppet government, and they're saying the people have a voice. The people want this leader out. The people are asking for this. And then, of course, they bring in paid mercenaries, terrorists, to get the government out. In Yemen, it's the opposite. They have their puppet government. Well, aren't the people speaking? Aren't the people saying, hey, we would like a different government. Hey, we don't like this government. Why aren't they backing the people? They're not going to because they already have their puppet government. This is the way the U.S. government central bankers work. Once they have the puppet government in place, everyone else who objects to this is the enemy. They're terrorists, they're the enemy, and they always give them ultimatums. You do what we say or else. And we can see there's double standards going on everywhere because they have certain agendas. Now, U.S. military leaders, they are going to be sending more troops into Iraq. Can anyone say mission creep? We're continually seeing this happen where more and more troops are headed out to Iraq, and then many of them are being moved into Syria because this is how they get around everything. Oh, no. It's just a couple more. We're just going to send them to Iraq. Now remember, the United States government central bankers, they have an agreement with the Iraqi government where there can only be something like 4,000 or so permanent troops in Iraq. The rest of the troops, the United States government, what they've done is they got around this agreement by saying they're temporary with no expiration date, which really means they're permanent. And this is why when the corporate media comes out there, they say there's only 4,087 troops in Iraq. Well, they didn't count the other 4,000 temporary troops that are there, and there are more piling in every single day. So we can see already that they're trying to get more and more troops into this area. We see British forces. They have based themselves in the French-led multinational military operations center in Benghazi in Libya, and they are assisting General Khalifa Haftar. And the center was set up in December and began operating in February, which houses teams from Italy, Jordan, United Arab Emirates, the United States. And we can see that the United States has bases in Libya. We see the French and other countries are in Libya, just like in Syria. It looks like they're getting ready to take over the entire Middle East. Now, we're seeing the United States is saying that they are willing to launch airstrikes against the Islamic State in Libya in the future. Not at this second, but we will be doing this. They want to see how the unity government works out. They want to see if they get full power. And like I said, they're having a very tough time because the people are not for the unity government. The unity government was forced on the people by the UN, the United States, the coalition forces. The people didn't vote for this government. Does anyone see there's a problem here? Of course, the United States doesn't see a problem because they have their puppet government. And all those people who oppose it, well, they're the enemy. They're waiting for the unity government to get into full power so they can invite the United States in there to help out with those people who oppose the unity government. We see the U.S. is making a major push to Manbij in Syria. And what's very, very interesting in Syria, in Raqqa, We see the Islamic State has been using nerve gas, and it has pushed the Syrian forces out of Raqqa. And we see the U.S. and the moderate rebels, Kurdistan, they are moving into Raqqa. Now, the U.S. is going to hand off this territory to the Kurds. And we can see what they're doing because they're setting up a greater Kurdistan area. And what they're setting up right now is to separate Syria. And they're setting up different regions where they're saying this is the greater Kurdistan region. So wherever the Islamic State is, what the United States government central bankers are doing is they're just moving into those positions and taking over that area as quickly as they possibly can before Russia and the Syrian forces remove them. Because once they're removed and the Syrian forces have those areas, the United States government central bankers, they have no way of fighting those forces right now. We see Russia, they have a warship that's going through the strait in the Bosphorus in Turkey. They're heading towards Syria. So another warship is coming into the area. And we see the UN is trying to set up additional peace talks. And they're going to discuss options on June 29th. Now, the White House came out and they have ruled out a U.S. military attack against the government of President Assad, saying the outcome of any such action would not be in America's best interest. Really? Because that's what they've been doing for the last 6 years. But let's go with them. White House spokesman Josh Earnest said Wednesday that Obama is determined to make sure that the United States does not make the unwise assessment that somehow we can succeed in imposing a military solution on Syria. Because he said, I'm not sure exactly what legal authority the president would rely on to do something like that. Well, he just gave it away. He's not sure exactly what legal authority. Well, right now he has no legal authority. Right now, the authorization for war has not been passed. So what they're telling us is they need some legal authority to make their move and to go after Assad. And we see right now that this is where they're moving towards. This is what they're going to try to push. Because they're not going to do it legally. They're going to do it illegally. They're going to use some type of an event. This is why Ashton Carter went around to all the European nations, all the coalition forces, to bring in military assets, to bring in military troops into the region. This is why the United States, the French, the Germans, the UK, and everyone else, they're in Syria preparing and getting ready, building bases, bringing in support, supporting Turkey, having the drills in Jordan. All of this is for one reason and one reason only. How they're going to get around getting into Syria and going after Assad, well, we don't know exactly how this is going to happen. But we do know they can use some type of an event. We do know that there's been warnings, travel advisories in Europe, in the Middle East, in the United States. And we do understand that their goal has always been the same. And they know that once there's an election, they know Assad is not going to be voted out of office. So they have two ways of doing this. They have one, some type of an event that shakes the world. Could be nuclear, could be chemical attacks, could be power outages, however they want to explain it. Or they can try to assassinate Assad in some way. Get to him. They've been trying for many, many years. But whatever they have planned, it has to enable them to move troops, forces, into Syria. Because we know they want to break it up. We know they want to go after Assad. We know they want to form a completely new government without Assad. And this has been their goal for a very long time. And at the same time, the economy is deteriorating. Because remember, they planned this, and this was supposed to be all completed by 2008. We're in 2016 now. They were supposed to get into Iran at this point. And here we are in 2016. Their plan has not worked. The people in Yemen, the people in Libya, the people in Lebanon, the people in Iraq are all fighting back. They want their countries back. They want the U.S. out of there. And they're going to sell their oil not using the dollar. The entire Middle East is falling apart. The U.S. is losing control. And they thought they would have full control of the Middle East and they would have Iran in their back pocket. And none of their plans have worked out. So they're going to be desperate. And this is something we need to watch. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.